Good afternoon. This is Tuesday, April 14. This is the 11th, no, I believe the 12th day in our online presentations, almost the beginning of the third week. And we're going to cover Geometry Skill L6 in IXL. And before we get started with the skill itself, I want to remind you of what you need to get for a grade. So first of all, very important rule that I want to point out here is absolutely no one's grade will go down. So I'm going to write that. No one's grade will go down. Okay? So there it is, written for you. Now, to improve your grade, your skill score must exceed your third quarter percent grade. So I'm going to write that down now. To improve your score, I should say your grade, so we're going to change that to grade. Your skill score must exceed your third quarter percent grade. So that is my pledge to you. All right. So now that you've got that written down, and I expect that you actually will write it down so that you'll remember it. Let's go into the skills. And I will, as I said to you yesterday, I will be putting down the complete ruling about grades in a separate email that I will be sending out to you. And I'm going to try to get that out this afternoon. All right. So skill L6, what you're going to be able to do is to find the coordinates of the reflection of a geometric figure. So yesterday we did translations. And so we were moving one point in one direction, first horizontally and then vertically, and then that would draw the other points along because it's a rigid transformation and your geometric shape would not change. But this is a reflection. And so the basic reflection rules are that a reflection flips a figure across a line to create a mirror image. So that's important. A mirror image, obviously, points are going to change positions. When a point is reflected across the y-axis, the x-coordinate changes its sign from positive to negative or negative to positive. Okay, those are the basic rules. All right. So we're going to be using now in expanded degree the sheet that I've been telling you about for a couple weeks now, plastic sheet. And because I want to do some work on a graph on an XY coordinate chart, what I've done is I took my sheet of graph paper, and you'll notice underneath here I drew an XY axis, and I drew what would be our first problem. So I'm going to have that problem there. We're going to go over it here in just a minute. I'm going to set this to the side, but I'm going to bring it back as we move through the information that we've got in front of us. So the next slide here is Exhibit 1, and here you're writing the coordinates of the vertices for rectangle QRST after a reflection across the y-axis. So this is triangle QRST. I'm sorry, not triangle, rectangle QRST, a four-sided figure. And you will notice that the coordinates are down here at the bottom for Q, R, S, and T. And then what the IXL is expecting you to do is to put in the proper coordinates for the reflection. And so the reflection we're going to call Q prime, R prime, S prime, and T prime. So I'm going to, in a moment, well, first I'm going to go to the next sheet and I'm going to start going through the steps of what we're going to do. And then I'm going to be bringing over my actual XY coordinate chart so that we can do the work as we go over each step. All right, so let's go on to the next slide here, or the next page. And so this gives us the steps that we're going to do, and there are 3 basic steps. So step 1, you're going to reflect Q, and there are the coordinates again for Q, across the y-axis. Now, since I have already drawn these, here's Q, here it is at 4, -1. Bring it up here so you can see it a little better. 4, -1. Then you know, it's not going to be something that you have to rewrite. You just simply start with that. But when you do your own, please go ahead and do what I've just done here. Draw your XY axis, draw in your coordinates, draw the rectangle, show the coordinates as well as the letters, and then show them down here at the lower left. Do that on your plastic sheet of paper. If you don't have a plastic sheet of paper, yes, you can use just a plain sheet of paper without a plastic sheet or with a plastic sheet. It's up to you. But this is the best, fastest, easiest way to do it because I can go ahead and use my little rag eraser here to erase any mistakes that I make. Okay, so the skill 1, they want you to reflect this point Q with those coordinates 4, -1 across the y-axis. So since Q is 4 units to the right of the y-axis, then Q prime will be 4 units to the left of the y-axis. Now let's just take a look at that. So here's Q. Let me bring this up. And I think I'm going to turn off, there we go, turn off the little lamp there, and that makes it easier to see. Here's Q down here, and at 4, -1. And if you count from 4, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the y-axis, which is what they were just talking about up above here. Okay? 4 units to the right of the y-axis. So they said that Q prime has coordinates that are going to be at 4, -1 because Q will be 4 units to the left of the y-axis. It's going to be a reflection. So let me use, I think I'm going to use red for this. So I'm going to go over here to Q, and Q is again at 4, -1. I'm going to, it's 4 units to the right of the y-axis, so I'm going to count, I'm going to bring my pen along here and I'm going to count 4 units to the left of the y-axis. So here's the y-axis, here's 1 or -1, -2, -3, -4. So my Q prime is going to be at x is -4, y is -1. Okay? All right. So over here, I would write -4, -1. Okay? And so you can't quite see that, but I'm going to bring it up. So what I did was I wrote it down here at the bottom. So you can see it here. Okay? All right. Now, we've taken care of step 1. Step 2. So step 2, bringing this up, says you're going to reflect R, which is at 4, 6. So here's R at 4, 6, across the y-axis over to here. So again, R is 4 units to the right of the y-axis. We want to go 4 units to the left. So here's the y-axis, -1, -2, -3, -4. I know I'm using negative numbers, but remember that's an absolute value of 4 units from 0. So here's R, and I'm going to put R up here. R, and R is -4, X is -4, Y is 6. Okay? And then I'm going to write that down here. -4 and 6. So there you see it there. Okay. All right, and then next, let's bring this up and let's take a look at step 3. Step 3 actually combines the last 2 points, which is kind of nice. Let me bring this down here. So step 3, you now want to reflect S, which is at 8, 6. Here's S at 8, 6. You want to reflect it, and you want to reflect T, which is at 8, -1, across the y-axis. So since S prime is going to be across the y-axis, that got to be 8 units to the right, because as we said before for R and Q, they were 4 units to the right. So we had to reflect for R prime and Q prime. Let me write R prime there. We had to reflect it 4 units across the y-axis. Now it's 8. So why is it 8? It's because S here, for instance, is located where X is 8. And if you go back to 0, where X is 0, that's 8 units. So we're going to count another 8 units going to the left of the y-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so this is going to be where S is. So S, and that's S prime. And so it's going to be at -8, 6. All right? And I'm going to write that down at the bottom. -8 and 6. Okay? So we now have 3 over 4 points. We just need the last one. T down here is at 8, -1. So like S, it's going to move 8 units across the y-axis. Now when I say 8 units, we've got to go back from where we've got +8 to 0, so that's 8 units, and then another 8 units to get to the other side, because it's a reflection. So really it's a total of 16 units all the way across for this. So going from the y-axis, I'll count the 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And no surprise here, and of course this is at -1. It's going to be in the same position on the x-axis that S prime was. So T prime is at X is -8 and Y is -1. So I'm going to write down at the bottom -8, -1. Okay. So once I've done that, then I can go ahead and connect my points. Now I'm not going to use Ruler to do it because I'm afraid I'm going to smear the document, because remember these are erasable markers. So I'm just going to draw. It's not very green. It's not very strong here. It looks like it's had its day, but you can see it there. So there's my rectangle. Q prime R prime S prime T prime. It's a reflection of QRSD or QRST. So there you have it. That's the whole thing. And so again, take a picture of that. Use that as your guide. Go through the steps like I did. And of course, I had my page peeking out from under. But the important thing you'll want to remember from all of this is that the reflected points Q prime, R prime, S prime, T prime form a rectangle that is congruent to QRST. Because remember, these are rigid transformations, and rigid transformations do not change the shape or size of the rectangle. Instead, what they, or of whatever the geometric figure is, instead they preserve the shape and size. So since it's preserved, these are congruent figures, and it's one way of proving congruency. All right, that's it for today, and go ahead and start the skill L6. And by the way, these are going to be due, and I'm going to, in my separate email, I'll mention this. These will be due on Friday of this week. So these two, that's what I expect you to do. I'm a little bit flexible with it, but we need to get all of these 5 skills that you're going to be doing for your test done, completed with the minimum scores by a certain date, and that certain date is going to be later in this month, about a week and a half. So we've got plenty of time, shouldn't be an issue. I will give you the actual date in that email. All right, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye now.